Benji.
Yes.
Ew. Do you remember your first Valentines that you gave?
The first one I gave. Okay, so the first real one on somebody that I was crushing on, or the first...
What's a fake one?
Well, it's like a friendly one. Like the one... Oh, because like in school, they make you give Valentines to everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Every year.
I don't know if we've mentioned this, but I was...
If you say it again, I quit.
I was homeschooled.
Goodbye.
This is a great... So anyway, Josiah Rizzo, continuing. What's a friendly Valentine? Because I never gave those out. No one deserved a friendly Valentine from me except those.
Because he didn't have friends, because he was homeschooled by himself.
I was not homeschooled by myself. I had people.
Your sister.
I remember the first girl I gave my Valentine to.
Oh, what was her name?
Her name was... What was her last
Do
name?
you?
No, it was Haley.
Oh, cute.
Haley...
Steinfeld?
No. Yeah. No, I actually do remember their name. It was a whole family, and she was older than me, and I gave her a Valentine, and she gave me one back, but it was like a cute one, like, sure, it was a small, like, SpongeBob, one of those, like, cut-out SpongeBob ones, and it said something like, sure, and I was like, and I don't remember what I thought would come of that.
Well, what did your Valentine say?
Let's get it on, bitch.
All right. And
no.
So for the podcast, let's get it on, bitch.
No. Just quickly, just let me know.
Start and rewind.
No. Just who was yours? Did you have one?
The first real Valentine I gave out for somebody that I had a crush on was a girl named Anna. I believe, yeah. And it was when I was in gymnastics. She was on the girls' team, and I thought she was cute, and we never really talked, and I just literally showed up with one of the tiny little boxes of chocolate and a little Valentine and gave it to her, and it's like, all right. And she was like, oh, and then nothing came of it because nothing ever comes of it if you're not really
in a movie
dating. Yeah.
If you're not in some cute movie where everything works out, and we'll touch upon this.
Oh.
But I think the most damaging aspect of any romantic comedy for me growing up, a very impressionable kid. I don't know. Do you know how impressionable I am, Benji?
Oh my goodness. If you don't know, I think we should make a supercut of all the impressionable things you've done.
Well, if there was one thing I would say about romantic comedies, it's that they promised me that if I was to do some big grand act and just be there as a nice fucking person, that women would eventually throw themselves at me.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you, that's not how it works.
Happened. Well, you know what? You're still in the middle of your rom-com. Hopefully
that's so
towards
sweet.
the end, actually.
And you're my gay best friend?
Yes, I'm going to be the sassy one that's like, girl, actually, no, because the straight guys don't have gay best friends in rom-coms.
We don't?
Because it's not about you. It's not. It's usually from the female perspective.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Is there a male romantic comedy?
I'm sure there is.
We need to make that.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do.
Wait, there's one that's flipped, right? There's a few. There's got to be. No.
Okay, let's do the opening titles.
Let's start the show.
I'm Josiah Rizzo.
I'm Benji Jones.
And on Wednesdays, we wear pig.
Hi, and welcome back to the Pink Popcast, a pop culture podcast where we talk about film, media,
and everything else,
and the impact that it's leaving or has left on our generation. I am Josiah Rizzo. I am a writer, director, filmmaker.
Oh my gosh, 3 things?
Yes,
okay.
3, the Holy Trinity.
I am Benji Jones, and I'm an actor, singer, dancer. Prove me wrong.
You didn't say you were a good one.
Exactly. There we go. Actor, singer, dancer. Today we're talking about the 2019 romantic comedy, Isn't It Romantic?
Isn't what romantic?
It
what? And
everything.
Who's on third base?
What's on first? Who's on third?
Whatever. Yes. So we are talking about Isn't It Romantic? Came out last year. Apparently it was apparently. I don't know why I said apparently.
Apparently.
It was released February 28th, 2019, which that was a missed opportunity. Should have released that on Valentine's Day.
That was well after Valentine's Day.
But we are coming up on Valentine's Day this week, so we thought we'd show you guys just like a nice little treat. I was looking this up online, and it's just not it didn't leave much of an impact with people, which is sad. Like there was no reviews, there were no like lists of like, hey, this underappreciated film.
Honestly, yeah, I think it got overlooked because of the other one, the Amy Schumer one.
Oh,
I Feel Pretty.
But that one came out like in December, didn't it?
Yeah. But it came out, and I was like, it looked like it was going to be cheesy, but also, like, it could have been a fun ride. And then I watched it, and I was just like, it just fell short of what they were trying to do for me.
And so you think people
and then I think everybody, the people who would have seen this movie and appreciated it, saw that and were just like, I can't do it.
Well, that one came out in April of 2018, and the film we're talking about came out in February of 2019.
People, when they get hurt, they feel it. They stick with it.
I guess that says something like, no offense, but for me, Rebel Wilson's more of a draw, and the plot was
absolutely. And I think it might have come off a little too cheesy for people or something like that.
Well, that's sad. They're missing out, and I like doing these episodes because I like being able to tell people. I like to be like a pusher. I'm a pusher, Katie. I push.
What does that mean? Like a drug pusher?
That's funny. Write that down.
Probably.
No, I like to push things onto people that they're like, hey, I would never really tried that before. So, like Dan's in real life or what's the other one I always talk about other than Pirates of the Caribbean, which I worship?
Little Manhattan.
Yeah, I've mentioned that twice now.
Hot Fuzz.
I mentioned that once.
Oh, are you saying things you haven't mentioned?
No, things I have mentioned multiple times. I'm like,
yes.
Get it, watch it, do it.
He's a movie pusher.
I'm a movie pusher.
Yeah, no, this one's a great one. It should have had a bigger hit than it did. I think probably because they didn't do it on Valentine's Day. I'm sure there was a specific reason.
That's sad.
But if they had, maybe it would have been something that like girls would have drugged their boyfriend. Like, let's just go see a cute little movie,
I will say when watching it, I don't like to generalize people because you can always be surprised by somebody's taste. But I liked the movie, and I'm a very weird, specific person, so I was kind of curious. I'm like, I wonder how many other people like
really
would really enjoy this film, because it does feel kind of like here's if I was to do my initial thoughts on it. It's too unique to be broad, and it's not good enough to be a cult classic. So it's like it's kind of in this middle ground where it's like
I see.
It's like it's different enough where you're not gonna get like the average romantic comedy moviegoer, and it just needed to be a
little bit more hokey,
just a little. I don't know what. And there's one thing I will bring up when we go through it, kind of like quasi beat through beat, but it was missing just a little something that I feel probably would have made it for like it started off, it didn't make its money back, but then it became like a cult classic, and I feel like it just was, it's good. I love it. I'd recommend it.
I think it was a little bit too good to be a cult classic. Like a
cult
classic is a little shitty. Like I think it's just like something that
maybe not a cult classic.
That was crazy, but it was fun.
Maybe it just needed a little. It just needed to be a little bit better.
I was like, maybe it would have been more of a cult classic if instead of going the route of like, okay, this is all very predictable, she's gonna learn her lesson in the world and come back and like be real. Like it could have been a thing where she decides like when she gets there, she's like, oh, I'm gonna live in this world, I'm gonna stay here, and she like gets drug out and she's fighting it the whole time.
Or something where it goes wildly like
away from where you thought it would.
And that would probably be the one criticism I have, where it's like it relies very heavily on what it's satirizing, that it's almost a little too predictable. But there are things that can be good about being predictable,
Exactly.
Like the person you're with, you don't want them to surprise you.
I think you do.
But
like not in like a surprise.
Surprise! I'm cheating on you.
Both good answers. Both
solid answers. One
more
better.
like surprise, we're going to dinner.
Oh,
not surprise, I have 6 children by 5 different women.
Anyway.
So
Isn't It Romantic is, like we mentioned, it came out in 2019, came out last year. It's directed by Todd Strauss-Schulson. No. He wrote no, he didn't write and direct. He directed a very Harold and Kumar 3D Christmas.
That's a lot.
And he also directed The Final Girls. Did you ever see that one?
No.
Similar to this movie.
I saw the original Girls,
Okay.
not the final ones.
No, that's not.
Were the final ones better than the originals?
No, okay. The Final Girls is about a group of kids who get stuck in a horror film, but then the main girl she gets to re-meet her mom, who played a character. She passed away in real life,
Oh my
but
God.
played a character in this
Oh my God.
Friday the 13th type horror film.
Yeah.
It's very funny, and it was a lot of the same type of
Tropes as this.
as this one.
That's cool. I would watch that. Well, let's review that for Halloween.
Right, there you go. And this movie was starring Rebel Wilson, one of the Hemsworths.
Ooh.
Which one? You'll never
Liam.
know.
Oh, should I
Liam?
not? Yeah. Do you
Okay.
not know the
I
difference?
mean, I wouldn't have known.
You don't know.
I know who Chris
which
is.
one is not Thor.
I know who Chris is.
Oh, yeah, and then there's Liam, and then the other one doesn't look like either of them, so it's really obvious.
There's Adam Devine. He's in it.
Liam Hemsworth's delicious body.
Adam Devine's mushy body.
Mush. That's so mean. We'll get to that.
And then Priyanka Chopra, who's only done one other American film. Well, up until at this point, she had done Baywatch and then this. But I guess she's known over in India. So that's cool.
And Aaron Samuels.
I knew you were going to do that.
Yeah, of course.
All right, so let's summarize the film.
Thanks.
So Rebel Wilson plays Natalie, who is an architect who works in a very realistic and shitty version of New York.
Lives in a very shitty, realistic
Version of New York. And you can tell by her past, and then through a kind of a very contrived conversation, that she hates romantic comedies.
Yes.
But then, lo and behold, she gets mugged in a subway, as one does in New York.
Oh, yeah.
And she wakes up in a beautiful version of New York, where it turns out she is the heroine of a romantic comedy.
Yes, and the whole time she's like scratching and clawing and begging to get out. And I'm like, why?
Right.
Like,
But it does work. I mean,
sure.
you would be like, why?
Yeah, like I guess for her character it works, but also her character was like didn't like rom-coms because her mom told her that's not how life is.
So rewatching it, that was the same thing I thought. I was like,
Yeah.
I needed a scene.
I needed something where you realize, like, where somebody breaks your heart and you're like, love is the worst.
Right.
And then when you wake up in a rom-com, you're like, I don't want this. Or like she's literally just getting over a breakup.
Right.
So she's just completely salty to love, even if it is that perfect,
Right.
like rom-com.
Well,
love.
it reminded me of it should have been like the opening for Miss Congeniality, which is one of my favorite films. And I'm actually surprised I've never mentioned that before on this podcast. But
Really?
yeah,
We haven't, yeah.
Miss Congeniality is a hilarious film.
Yes.
And the only reason I didn't mention it last week on our romantic films is I feel like the romance is secondary to the main story, which is her coming into her own.
And the relationship is kind of not great.
The relationship sucks.
And they're not together
And
in the
it's
second
mostly
one.
about her relationship with the other girls and herself, which makes it a great female empowerment movie.
Great
Not the best.
self-love movie.
Yeah, not the best romantic film, and that's fine. But anyway, in the opening, she defends the boy. This is the opening of Miss Congeniality. Young Gracie Hart defends the boy on the playground. We see that A, she kicks ass, B, she cares for people. But then the boy turns around and basically is like, ew, you're a girl, and gets mad at her, and then runs away. Now, is that if someone was treating you shitty and then said, oh, it's all because of this one moment, you'd be like, well, that's not enough.
You were 5.
But in a romantic movie, in a comedy movie, it works.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
this movie didn't have that. This movie starts off with a very funny scene. She's Rebel Wilson's character is watching Pretty Woman.
Mm-hmm.
Her mom comes in, and rightfully so, is like, oh, that's a bunch of bullshit. But there's no context as to why. And then
Well,
just
I mean, we can imagine that she's had a rough life.
right, but you don't see either of their quick example of why.
I mean, they're in like kind of like a small apartment. It's just the two of them. We're assuming there's not a dad. Like the mom looks a little rough. Like she's not this cute little like, oh honey, that's not life. She's like, hey, that's not how life is. Like it's like clearly you've been through
Right,
some
but like
shit,
the
girl.
daughter goes from like
Huh?
I was saying like the daughter goes, young Natalie goes from being like I like it to being like I don't like it, and there's nothing.
I agree with that. I was just like I don't think we need necessarily the explanation on why the mom doesn't like it.
Oh no, I mean
she's older, she's been through life, she understands that's fake.
She's just angry.
Yeah, but like, yeah, for her, like, she didn't really have a moment where like, mom said that, but I didn't believe it, and then this happened, and now I'm like, ugh, love is the worst. We didn't really see that flip of something happening to her where she's like, oh, mom was right, I'm done with love.
Right.
And then she just kind of is like, where she decided like, we didn't see the decision for her to focus on her career. We just she kind of mentions that, but it's also not like she's this typical like career-driven woman who's like, highly successful. She's just like kind of like she's making it,
right?
And she's focusing on her career versus love, and you're just kind of like, yeah.
Well, she does it very well, and that's the thing I really liked about this, especially watching it the second time. This is kind of a role that Rebel really excels at.
Yeah.
And what I liked about this one is that instead of her trying to be something, which is what we've seen like with the Fat Amy character, or even the one that you tried to make me watch the other month, the Players, no, what was it? Hustle. The Hustle with Rebel. Are you just like purposely being frustrating?
No.
With Anne Hathaway?
I'm just thinking Hustlers. Oh, yes, The Hustle, Anne Hathaway.
Oh my
and
gosh.
Rebel Wilson. I was thinking of Hustlers because of the Super Bowl.
No. So like the character that she normally plays is kind of like I'm this character, but everyone's like, no, you're not. And in this one, it was more like, no, I know who I am, and I don't want anything else.
Yeah.
And it was funny to have people. It was actually funny because like, in this one, it was the flip of the character. Everyone was like, "You're this," and she's like, "I'm not really." Like,
oh yeah, okay, I see what you're saying.
And I thought that was a lot funnier. That played a lot more to her strengths than being like the oblivious, like
the how she has like the kind of overconfidence in most of her roles.
This one worked very well because everyone else was like super confident, and she was like, no,
like, no.
And it's really funny.
The lion, your flaws are what makes you beautiful. No, your flaws are what makes you ugly. That's why they're called flaws.
There's a lot of moments like that where I was just like, oh, she's really funny in this. And yeah, I just feel like definitely for the beginning, we needed a little bit more. Even if it was just something as simple as like the Miss Congeniality opening. It's not the thing that's gonna you balance your whole therapy sessions on, but for a movie like this.
Yeah, I was like, I think that was supposed to be that Miss Congeniality opening of this is what set her on this path.
Yeah,
was her mom kind of ruined rom-coms for her, so she just doesn't believe in love.
Yeah.
But again, I say that it needed to be followed up by a scene where something in her life proved that.
Like, I imagine if it had been like a romance that just didn't work because she thought it was going to work. Because like, I mean, if you've listened to this show enough, you know that I know that I identify with this girl. Like, I get it. I grew up thinking, wow, life's going to work out like the romantic comedies. In fact, when I was a kid, I used to watch the dumb husbands on TV and go, I'll never do any of that stuff. I'll just do the opposite of it. Because that's how easy love is.
Yep. I mean, that's what I did. I was like, these people lie to like get with the people they want. And then like when everybody finds out that they're lying, they lose all their friends and then they're really sad. And then it works out in the end, technically, but they went through all that crap for no reason. I'm just not going to lie to anybody. And then guess what? People want to be lied to. Like, they would never have met all these new people and found their boo thing if they hadn't lied. So,
all right,
I'm a liar now.
So she wakes up in this imaginary world. Few things we didn't set up. The Hemsworth, one of them. He is
Liam.
I don't know what his job is, but important job.
I think he's like building a hotel. Like he's a billionaire that's building a hotel.
And they're like the architectural company that is going to provide
architectural services or something.
Yeah.
However that works.
What I love is that their office looks just so like an actual office.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think this might have been the first time that we see two versions of New York in a film.
Yeah.
Like you always see the really done up, dolled up version of New York, and you don't think about it. You're just like, oh yeah, it works for the movies that it's in.
Yeah.
And then you see real movies that like have real New York, and you're like, but to see them contrast, you're like, oh, that's right.
Like, wow, yeah, that really is
New York is nothing like that. When they showed what it's like at the beginning, and the guy's like Indian food truck runs into her.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, that's kind of like when I went to New York, it was when I left, I think it was LaGuardia I left. I was just like, there were so many sounds and sights.
It's a lot. Like it
was like, cross the street right now. You're gonna I was just like, shit. Like, where do I go? Oh, actually no, because like I get on the bus. First off, I'm like, am I on the right bus? Like
by yourself. I grew up going to New York and running around the city, and like I literally could not imagine navigating it by myself. Like one of my friends moved to New York, and the last time I was there, I was like, oh, like, hey, I'm in New York, I'm gonna meet you. I was in Manhattan with family. She was in Brooklyn. Like 10-minute drive if you got a car. I obviously don't have one.
Right.
So I was like, hey, I'm gonna meet you, and she was like, all right, cool. Like when I'm done with my family. I started looking at the trains, and I was like, I will die here. Like, I will never make it out. I'm going to end up in Kentucky. Like, this isn't going to be a thing. And I literally had to tell her, because, like, and then I asked my dad, and I was like, hey, like, how would I get to Brooklyn right now? And he's like, oh, you're just going to hop on the A right here, and you're going to get off here. You're going to cross over to the C. You're going to go blue.
I'm going to stop you right there.
And I said,
stop you right there.
What is an A? Like, so I was like, I texted her, and I was like, yeah, this isn't going to happen.
So when people come out to California and you see them staring blankly at those parking signs, the 500 of them, and they're just wondering, am I allowed to park here ever? That's what I looked like in New York, staring at the subway map, just like, am I allowed to get anywhere ever? Like,
no,
so when they show that in this film, I'm like, yeah, that's New York. I mean, to a degree, even still, the subway system's a little too clean, but you know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I appreciated the fact that they like did those contrasts and showed like the real New York, and mentioned, because obviously you can't show it, but mentioned the difference in smells.
That's like, I never would have thought that, but oh God. And so it works because like, yeah, you see those, we're so accustomed to seeing beautiful New York that we think nothing of it. And then in this film, when they show it for the first time, you're just like, ugh. Like,
or especially when we go back to it, you're like, ugh, because you do get used to the beautiful New York, because you're like, this is what I'm used to seeing.
My reaction was to beautiful New York.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
No. I love it. I would have stayed there. But you know, whatever. It takes like 5 seconds to get everywhere. Beautiful men are just constantly trying to date you. Like, it's just.
So yeah, that's what happens. She wakes up in a hospital, or she calls it a Williams-Sonoma. Doctor's beautiful. The environment is beautiful. There's flowers everywhere.
And you keep getting like the pretty little camera flares, little lens flares. Like,
she stumbles out of the hospital. Everything in New York is beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Leaves, goes to her apartment. It's beautiful. Her dog,
it's huge,
that doesn't look at her in real life, is now a beautiful little Bichon Frise.
Bichon Frise, yeah, and is all perfectly brushed and blown out and just gorgeous.
Oh, is it blown out? He had a nice little blowout.
He did.
A nice little doggy blowout.
Brush and blow out.
Benji, what do you do?
I work with dogs.
You work with dogs?
I am a bather.
What?
Yeah. And it's funny because I didn't say it, because I say it a lot. When she first was like picking up her dog, I was like, damn, that dog needs a brush. But I didn't say it, because I always say it.
Because you think it.
I think it. And then like when it came back, and I was like, like, it literally, like, it gives me anxiety to look at dogs that aren't brushed out, because I'm like, it's work. Like, I'm like, oh, somebody has to do that. And I like think about work.
Wow.
Anyways.
Something that we forgot. She gets hit by Liam Hemsworth's character. Liam Hemsworth?
Liam.
Is that the Hemsworth?
Yes, you got it. Good
Thor
job.
Jr. She gets hit by Thor Jr.'s limo, and she's like, oh my God, we completely skipped over the relationship between her and Adam Devine, or as he's also known, Josh.
In the movie.
So her best friend Josh is played by that Workaholics guy that everyone knows from Workaholics or Pitch Perfect.
Pitch Perfect guy.
And he's just being that best friend who's clearly, obviously in love with her in real life. And then
she's just completely oblivious to it. And then she has a little office assistant that is like this shy little girl that doesn't really, I mean, she's a woman who doesn't really like do much work. She just literally like watches TV the whole time, or watches movies, rom-coms the whole time.
She's getting shit on at work, even though she clearly is like an architect. So
yeah,
like
but everybody treats her like an office assistant.
And then of course, when Liam Hemsworth's character treats her like an office assistant, she complains to Josh that like a beautiful man like that never would like notice me. To which, of course, Josh is heartbroken, because
he's like, I notice you. Jinx.
You owe me a
Now
soda.
it's my podcast.
That's not how it works. I'm not gonna. What are you? 12?
Wow, we have you ignoring a jinx on camera.
Yeah.
I'm interested to
At
see
me.
what
Come at me.
happens.
What's gonna happen?
The jinx gods are coming for you, girl.
And
Sorry.
this isn't a 90s Jim Carrey comedy where I'm like,
Earthquake. Anyways,
so we do such a great job at going beat by beat. Now fast forward, she's in the romantic comedy. Josh is the only one she can trust. So she's talking to him, of course, because he loves her. He's trying his best to understand her. But if some bitch came up to me like, I'm in a romantic comedy, I'd be like, girl, shrooms?
so
Like-
me and my roommate, me and my friend Chris, we have an agreement that we're not allowed to joke about this. But if one of us comes to the other one with a situation like that, specifically, I'm living the same day over and over again, help me, we have to drop everything and help them. Like, because we're not going to be the person in the movie that you have to explain it to over and over again, and you have to prove it, and you have to be for the 50 millionth time that you've been through this, you've been through it so much you literally know everything that's going to happen that day, and you have to drag them around and show them until they finally believe you. We were just like, here's a pact. If you come to me and you say that, I will immediately believe you and we will move forward. No discussion necessary. But we cannot do this jokingly. And we're like, got it. So
Can you imagine, though, if you did joke?
no, that's
You should
not
do that.
No, that's not
You
how
should
it
do it.
works. That's not how
I'm
this
just
works.
saying, how amazing would it be?
This is why I can't have this pact with you. Anyways, if he was a good friend, he would just believe her and move on. Don't look
I
at me
don't
like
know.
that.
So yeah, he believes he does his best to believe. And one of my favorite gags in the movie that elicited the loudest laugh from me in the theaters is that they leave the office, which is now like this Google looking,
Yeah,
like-
it's like this perfect $1 billion startup.
and of course
office.
her best friend's now the bitch because
Yeah, because as she mentioned before, like the female characters always have to be at war.
yeah. And oh God, rewinding before she hits her head.
Rewind. Let's
This
count
is-
how many times we say that.
This is
this
fun. This is
episode.
fun. We like to explain our movies like it's a Tarantino film. But yeah, before they go into the dream comedy world, she has a rant which is comes out of nowhere. Like she's just like, "Oh, I hate romantic comedies. You're always watching romantic comedies and they suck."
But then she bags on romantic comedies pretty perfectly, and it's really great.
It's very funny.
It's very funny and accurate.
Yeah.
And she mentions that.
Yeah. So then, fast forwarding.
Fast forward.
My favorite gag is it randomly cuts to these two beautiful people in like Central Park. And I don't know, like the one girl trips and the guy's like, I don't know, they doesn't trip. Just he's like looking at her and he's
They
like
bump into each other somehow.
he's like, wow. And he's like, they come towards each other. Like it's gonna be this beautiful moment. And for a half second, you're like,
did we switch movies?
did we switch movies? And then boom, like Natalie just barges through the middle of them, cutting them off.
So great.
Completely lost in her own world as
Yes.
she's complaining to Josh.
So funny.
He of course brings that up later. He's like, yeah,
He's like, you put your shoulder down and just barreled through those two people who are clearly about to fall in love, like a
because
linebacker.
she's invisible. She's not invisible to love. She's
Oblivious to
love. And then the beautiful Priyanka. What's her name? Priyanka Chopra is her.
Priyanka Jonas.
But I mean, what's her name in the film? It's Isabella.
Isabella Rossellini.
No, I think it was just Isabella.
Isabella.
Anyway,
Okay.
so Josh randomly sees a woman choking, and then he's like, I'm going to help her. And then she turns out to be this beautiful woman that Natalie thinks he's been staring at in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
And now she's in this comedy world.
Yeah.
And he's like, and she's so beautiful and beguiling.
Yes. Rewind
No.
to when she meets Liam Hemsworth, who is now Australian because he was American in the real world. He's
I didn't
Australian
even realize that. I just associate an Aussie accent to all of them.
Oh, of course, because they're actually Australian. But he meets her and he's like, wow, you're so beguiling. And then like he continues to say
mentioning-
it throughout the movie. So
Yeah, as you had said, like all the guys suddenly just starts throwing themselves at her.
So when you watch this movie, you will be saying beguiling for the rest of the week.
You're welcome.
And then before he leaves her, he writes his number on a bunch of different rose petals.
This is Liam Neesworth. Liam.
Liam Neesworth.
Liam
Hemsworth.
Liam Hemsworth.
Liam Neeson.
Neeson Lemson.
Idel Nassim.
The mini Thor.
Baby Thor.
He leaves and he's like, he writes his phone number on petals
Of a rose. And like drops them in her hand. And she's like, cool.
and of course it's like a one in a long string of things that she's just like commenting on.
Mm-hmm.
Which could be a joke that would get old very quick. I'm sure for some people it did. But for me, it's just like she's just really good at
just, like reacting to things that are so ridiculous and just
Right.
being like genuine reactions to like whenever like she was trying to cuss and like nothing would let her cuss because her rom-com is like PG-13. And like the final time, like, because like stuff would kept cutting her off, and the final time when she's down in the subway, like trying to get somebody to mug her so she can go back, like she's all like, what does she say? She says everything here is so. She tries to say so fucking sweet or something like that, and like the train horn goes like brr, right when she's saying the F word, and she just has this face of like pure like frustration and confusion of like, really, like. Fine, okay.
Yeah.
It's just like such genuine like
I
his
didn't.
reactions are so good.
I think it just like it would. It's. I wish there could be more opportunities for her to do stuff like this because she'll do the shtick, but it doesn't always work.
Mm-hmm.
Case in point, you haven't seen it, and I hope we can talk about it on this podcast in the future. But in Cats, she kind of has like. For what little moments she's able to riff, that was oh boy, that was a film.
Oh, that'll be a fun one. We'll do it.
But in Cats, there are moments where both her and James Corden are like commenting on it, and you're just like, the movie's taking itself too seriously. Like you can't comment on it like you're the douchey guy who's like, oh man, I'm such a douche, and that like that makes up for it. It's like, no, the film sucks. Stop thinking that commenting on it
is gonna make it
better. It's not really her fault. Like that, they throw actors like that in, going like, here, give us credibility, and it's like, no, that's not going to add credibility. But in this case, it's a perfect use of her talents.
In this movie, isn't it romantic?
In this movie, and isn't it romantic? It's a perfect like showcase of like just this. I don't know. It's just funny to watch her be so like angry during and it works too.
It's like perfect little world, and she's just so frustrated.
And I'm trying to think of like how it would have had to been like a really dark comedy if they had a character that wanted to be in that world, because then you would have had to go the route of like, oh, this is what you think's gonna happen.
Exactly. And
the complete opposite,
kind of dark.
Which I'd watch that film too.
Yeah. No, that would be really interesting, and I'm surprised nobody's written that yet. Maybe it'll be us.
So what happens next? Oh, so yeah, Josh falls in love with this random woman. She's left alone. Nobody to talk to. Best friend's a bitch. She tries to go back down to the subway to get someone to mug her because film logic. Maybe that'll
Maybe that'll fix it. Just do the same thing over.
Like a jolt.
Maybe we should like a jolt. I love it.
It's a Freaky Friday reference.
Yeah.
So she tries to do that, but then she tries to like jump in front of
the train
of a subway.
Yeah.
And then a cop arrests her for multiple reasons.
A very attractive cop.
Very Officer Handsome.
Literally Officer Handsome.
Officer Handsome, but he doesn't have the D.
Oh, look at that. Because it's PG-13.
Yeah. I bet he literally just doesn't have a D in his name. It's just Handsome.
No, yeah.
No, I get. Did you see what
I saw?
Did you get that?
She did, yeah.
Yeah.
But she said her hand was on his junk, so apparently he did.
Okay. Anyway, so she gets arrested and she has to make a phone call, but she doesn't remember any numbers. But guess what?
She has rose petals that she can just throw in the air. She was like, let's just try this. Throws them in the air. Of course, they land in perfect order, including parentheses and the dash in perfect order. She calls him and he answers, and she's like, so stupid. So good.
And of course, he takes her back home, keeps saying the word beguiling.
Are we doing beat by beat like full
it's a
on,
short
or are
film.
we doing more like overarching?
It's a short film.
Okay.
Well, yeah. So then he takes her on her first date. She has a voiceover that mentions, "Hey, maybe if we get this man to fall in love with us,
we'll get out of here.
We'll get out of here." And of course, because she's not you, she wants to get out.
Yeah.
Of the world. And then what happens?
Are you lost?
No, like they go on a date.
So they go on the date.
They go on the
The
date.
date ends well. The date ends in quote unquote sex. But it's a PG-13 movie. So as soon as they start making out and like go into her apartment, it cuts to the next morning. And she's like, wait a second, hold up. Come here. He walks out of the shower like in his towel. And and then she's like, come here, get back in bed. He hops on top of her, and then they cut back to the exact same next morning. And she tries like a few times to have sex with him and realizes she cannot have sex with him.
No.
So sucks to suck. And then she's like, fine. Like he wants to tell her he loves her. And then she's like, okay, like that's going to send me back. And then he says it. She doesn't get sent back. And she's like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And then she realizes that's not where she realizes that it's her friend, Josh, that she needs to love.
No, she realizes it
Later.
What? When does she realize it?
That's when she gets frustrated.
Oh, well, she realizes it when he comes over later. So she's working, even in the romantic comedy world, she has like a big
presentation.
A big
that they
presentation.
keep talking about. The big presentation is coming up. How we're always dropped in the middle of their world right before this big thing that's happening. That
always in these films. So she's working hard in her beautiful loft.
Or is she hardly working?
She's working hard. And then, of course, best friend.
Oh my gosh, so pretty.
And then her best friend Josh comes over with dumplings and Chinese food, because that is kind of like the thing in those romantic comedies. I always like, Chinese food.
Chinese food. Here I am with our favorite food. Oh, look at me, I'm so special.
And they're so cute. And then Hemsworth Jr. comes strolling in and really annoying, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I guess you guys are together now. That's cool."
And then he walks off hurt and ashamed. And she's
he runs into the arms of the beautiful
like,
Isabella. So
it's he'll be fine.
He's gonna be fine.
Rewind. We forgot that Rebel lives next to a drug dealer, and then
in the real world.
And when she comes into this world, her drug dealer is a very extremely flamboyantly stereotypically gay man. He's like the perfect comic relief to a comedy.
He's so good. He's wait, what's his name? It's is it? Oh right, Donnie. He is hilarious.
He's
and what does he
good.
say? Why are you acting like a stereotypical gay man? Miss Girl Thing Bouffant.
No. He's like, why are you talking like that?
Why am I talking like
Talking like what?
No. Oh, I remember what she says. She comes in. She's like, Donnie, how'd you get in here? It's like, somebody said gay Beetlejuice 3 times, and here I am.
Here I am. He's
really good at it.
Yeah, no, he's like stupid good at it. Like they picked the perfect person for it. To just be the gay character that has
no life.
No life outside of her.
I can drop you off on my way to absolutely no plans at all.
It's like, is this how you get to work? If I had a job, yeah. Like when they ride later, because they do a little montage, or they almost do a montage. She cuts it off. It's in the deleted scenes, I think.
Oh wait, the like a clothing montage.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. I was wondering. It felt like something that should have been in the movie.
Yeah, I was like, how are we gonna skip over the montage? Like, I feel like that's kind of the main thing. Like, it was funny that she was like, no, and cuts it off. But I think it would have been funnier if she like was like, no, and she walks out and then is in a different outfit in front of a mirror and it's just like, I said no, and keeps trying to like run and keeps. But whatever, I didn't write it.
But so eventually it comes down to we have Rebel, we have Natalie with
Devine.
with Minnie Hemsworth. And
Natalie is Rebel is with Minnie Hemsworth,
and Josh Devine is with Isabella, the yoga ambassador /
swimsuit model.
And of course, for some reason, they announce that they're going to get married, and Natalie is crushed, and then of course, probably one of my favorite moments of the entire movie, the gay best friend who has no backstory reveals his backstory.
Yes, but only to benefit her.
True.
And I think that's obviously what they were commenting on. Is
right.
Like, you're here. You have no backstory. You're not here for anything but to progress her story.
He does it so
when
well.
you have your backstory, it's literally just to inform her. It's yeah. So he does like it's a great backstory. Like I feel
Well, it's not just, but the way he delivers
No,
it, you're
yeah.
like,
absolutely. You're like that was real shit.
shoot, I feel like that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, okay, so he does the flamboyant gay guy really well, but that doesn't make me think like, is that guy gay? Because I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like,
yeah.
but when he says that, like,
When he goes through his
when he goes to that
backstory,
backstory, it's like,
wait, is he actually gay? Did he actually
well,
deal with that?
it's less, is he actually gay? It's more like, is that actually his story? Like,
Mhm.
it's not very often that somebody does one of those. I'm going to use this scene in an acting class later moments where you're just like, it's not very often that I hear that and I go, okay, yeah, like that. I don't feel like those are real
Oh
because
my
they always just
gosh.
kind of come across as like,
That's so perfect. I'm starting an acting class next week, and I can totally use that. I'm supposed to come with a
Really?
monologue. Yes, thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay, yeah, no.
But they always read like that. It's like, hi, I'm Benji Jones and I'm going to be performing a scene from,
isn't it romantic?
and it's like, this is the actual film. And you're like, but it takes a good actor to like take those scenes, those little monologues that, Benji once when I was 13 years old, like, there's like all
It's
the
just out of context, they always just seem so cheesy.
always seem so cheesy.
Yeah.
So it's nice. It's very rewarding. Actor Brandon Scott. I don't know if I've ever heard of him before.
No, I
Brandon
don't
Scott
think so.
Jones as Donnie.
I think he's my cousin.
But it kind of blindsided me. Like the whole
Yeah.
thing, you're like, oh yeah, he's a funny,
Yeah.
funny character, and then
then-
he hits you with that,
yeah.
and you're like,
That was the first real moment in the movie too, because other
That's
than
true.
that, it was straight comedy, and he was the first one to break that wall and be like, "Surprise, we're going deep real quick." So he didn't really know himself,
Right.
And he didn't really care about himself, so he would follow just handsome guys around and kind
And
of
be there.
and just be their person that did everything for them in hopes that they would validate him until his psychic told him that the only person in the world that deserves the main person in the world that deserves love more than anybody else is you,
right,
like
which
yourself.
ties into the theme of the movie.
Exactly. And I think she heard the story wrong, because the story, he literally said, like, I learned to love myself and now I'm happy, basically was the overarching theme of his story. And she took that, not like surprisingly or not wrongly, like of, oh, right, I'm like focusing on the wrong person, I'm doing the wrong thing, like this is the person I should be with, when really the story, if you listen to it, is about loving yourself.
Right.
So I think that was interesting, because that's the jump that everybody would have made, because obviously rom-coms have told us like, oh no, go for the best friend, when it's like, no, that's not what this is about.
Yeah. And I think that's why. So just let's wrap up just like the movie aspect of this first.
Mm-hmm.
She runs to the wedding to break it up.
Yes, she was like,
'Cause
this
that's
is
how
always what it was going to come down to. Why did I not think of it? Runs, slow motion, obviously.
Goes to break it up, but then halfway through she has the realization, oh wait, it's not, I don't need to have someone fall in love with me. I need to have me fall in love with me. Great idea. Both this time and the first time I watched it, I felt like, oh, was that what we were trying to build up to?
Yeah, I felt like that too. I feel like that's good and bad, because I feel like it was good because we didn't see it coming,
Right.
but it was also bad because it
felt more tacked on than subtle.
And like when you're watching it through again, I can see where they tried to put it in there subtly, but it's not one of those things where when they say it, you're like, oh,
right,
obviously.
and that's how it should have been.
And that's how it should have
was
been.
more like,
is that what we've been
okay.
doing this whole time? And I think since it is a rom-com and we're in her brain, like we're thinking the exact same thing. We've all seen rom-coms.
Right.
We're following the beats. We're like, this is what needs to happen. We're completely ignoring it too. So I think it probably needed to be a little bit more pushed in there.
It felt like an idea that when you're explaining a film in the pre-production stage makes sense. You're like, and the theme of the film is that in the end, she learns how to fall in love with herself.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, that's really good.
Mhm.
That sounds like a great idea to wrap up this romantic comedy.
Yeah.
But it also feels like an idea that when you actually have to like sit down and flesh it out, you're like, how do we portray, because there's a lot of those, like there's films that know how to embody the idea that they're expressing. Spoiler alert, but Gone Girl, I love that film.
Yeah.
It's a very dark film. And the theme that they're exploring is the idea that when you're in a relationship, you lie and you put up barriers. and she gets angry in that because eventually his barriers fell down. And it's represented in the film by her literally being an embodiment of like a liar and a sociopath. Like she had a face that she paraded around, and like they literally voiced the theme of the film, which is like, he's like, you lied to me and you were this crazy person. She's like, how is that any different than marriage? And it's like, that's the theme of the film. That's the theme of the book, the theme of the film. And it's weirdly, it has a perfect kind of like metaphoric representation in the fact that her being this sociopath who literally put on a persona embodies the theme of, in relationships, people put on personas.
Yeah.
So in this one, it's like they had the good idea. It's like, okay, we're going to explore what it's like to learn how to fall in love with yourself. But it's just like, in the end, it's like,
doesn't even matter.
fall in love with it. You know, it was
but
like,
in the end, it was just like, oh wait, she needs to fall in love with herself.
right. And they like show clips as if like in context, as if you're like, oh yeah, that's when she was falling in love with herself.
Yeah.
But it came across like an editor went,
yeah, I do get the scene of her as a kid, of that thing, like that was probably where she first realized that she shouldn't love herself, because that was when her mom was like, girls like us don't have a good life.
True.
Like, girls like us, people don't want us. People wouldn't watch us. They would have to put Prozac in the popcorn.
she doesn't even have a place for a mustache.
Exactly. Like, she was like, that girl is pretty. People will pay. She has $1 million smile. Nobody wants to see us. That would be the point where she kind of is jaded and falls out of love with herself, where we think that's the point where she's jaded and falls out of love with romance and romantic comedies.
Oh, yeah.
And that's kind of what that kind of thing was, but they didn't really... There's probably, if you watch it in that reference, there's probably more points, like little ones, where it's like, oh, she's saying that because she doesn't really love herself. But I think that would have been more of a...
Ooh, that would have been a great, like, if they really would have leaned into that. That's that idea that her hatred for romantic comedies
is stemming from
a hatred for herself.
Yeah.
Because that could have been interesting, because then you like... And I guess it, like you said, is what they tried to do.
Yeah.
Or
because
they
more or less did it. It just, I think it was maybe too subtle, or maybe it wasn't obvious enough in the reveal.
It's not realized enough, I would say.
Yeah, it was like where you can see like, oh, like it's not that she doesn't like the friend, or like it's like because like when she's like, oh, like Matt or whatever his name is clearly likes you. Josh clearly likes you, and she's like, no, he doesn't like me. It's like that subtle thing of like, she doesn't love herself. She doesn't realize,
I'm not worth it.
I'm not worth it.
And that's great, because it's like it's a nice little bait and switch, where it's, she hates romance films because she hates romance. It's like, no, she hates romance films
because she doesn't think
she doesn't think she's worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That could have been really like, that could have been a nice little gut wrenching. And it does more or less work because, honestly, because of Donnie's like little
speech. Yeah.
Like speech. You're just like, and yeah, I didn't catch it the first time, but I did, you know, after what you just said, I'm catching it now. That he is essentially telling her,
bitch, love yourself.
Bitch, love yourself. And she was like, she and me were like, go get the man.
Yeah, exactly. What? No, the first time I watched it, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, oh yeah, you're just loving the wrong people. Like, you need to love the right person. But he was saying the right person is your damn self, bitch. But like, this time I was watching it, remembering the end, and I was like, oh, he's really telling her like, love yourself.
Right.
Because like, yeah. But yeah, good theme.
Which is it, and so like, so now movie aspect aside, I don't think I realized how influential romantic comedies were on me, but they were one of the few genres I could watch a lot of. Like,
yeah, exactly.
As a kid, I was pretty much always allowed, other than like When Harry Met Sally, which is rated R.
Oh.
I was pretty much allowed to watch any romantic comedy because they were my family's favorite. I loved them. You know, we could always like as a family enjoy them. And there's nothing wrong with them. I just, I was very impressionable, and I thought.
But honestly, that's an easy one to have, like, imprint on you, and not even realize it, because a lot of people are like, oh, like, you know, like this is how love is gonna look. Like, this is how it's gonna be. I'm gonna bump into somebody at the park one day, or I'm gonna realize that this person has always been there. Like, blah 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 blah. And that's like the tropes that you don't realize that you're acting out every day, but then you're like, when a movie like this calls attention to it, you're like, oh yeah, shit, love is weird. Like, love is patient, love is kind, blah 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 blah. But anyways, rom-coms went the way of the dodo, and hopefully they're coming back.
What? No, they did.
What? Oh no.
But that's what I mean, we said it on last week's episode, but I'm really happy because like they're coming back and they're more clever now.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is great. And they're clever without being
meta.
No, what's the word? They're not cynical. They're genuine. Like they're able to be like meta. They're able to be critical. They're able to be different while still kind of like being genuinely like appreciative of the genre. Which is great because it's like I feel like there was a moment where everything had to be ironic.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
you had to like if you liked it, it had to be very ironic. Like, oh, I like this. You know,
Wink.
whereas like now a lot of the romantic comedies that are coming out, they're becoming more progressive.
Yep.
They still seem to be enjoying the genre as opposed to being like, screw like romantic comedies. They suck. Like they don't suck. They can be really good.
They can be fun, and there's like it's been such a long time that we can really just kind of start from scratch again.
Yeah.
Like there's no like, oh, that's been done. It's like, no, it's been like 20 years. Like let's have fun again.
Oh, and then of course, how can we forget that the film ends with her getting the guy. Oh, the cute moment where she's like, so during the whole film, at least the first part.
Rewind to the front. Is that number 6 now?
At the beginning, she keeps catching Josh, like looking. And so here's one of those moments that was like, when they did the reveal, I was like, oh, that's what they were trying to do. Like, so she thinks, now here, let me explain it to you. And in theory, this works. She thinks that Josh is always looking at the picture of who turns out to be Isabella.
Yeah, so there's a huge billboard outside of her window.
Outside of her window.
Of a swimsuit
and he's
model.
always looking at it.
He's always staring out the window.
Now, it turns out like he's always staring at this photo. Always staring at it. Always gawking at it. And then, of course, at the very end, she mentions that to him and he goes, hold on. He makes her sit in his seat.
Yeah.
And then he runs over to her seat, looks at her, and is like, what do you see? And of course,
the billboard's cut off, and we
only see her seat and him in it, which means that this entire time he was looking at her. In theory, I explained that to you. Whoa, what a great reveal.
Yeah.
In the film, you're like, well, duh.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
it works, though, because the reveal scene is still so genuine and sweet that you're like, oh, but you're like, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah, like we knew he was looking at her. I think their main thing was that he was clearly looking out the window, not at her directly, is what she was probably noticing, that his eyes weren't on her. They were
because he was looking at a reflection of her face.
And he was looking at the reflection of her face in the mirror, in the window.
Yeah, it still was just like stuff where I'm like,
yeah.
Like we could explain it away, but like,
no, yeah. I
when
get it.
push
It's
comes to
just when
shove,
you're watching it.
I saw the film and I was like, yeah, no. I clearly knew.
For sure.
I knew that obviously he was in love with her.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, he actually does pretty good in it.
He's great. Like he's such a great, like, genuine everyman. We already like him. So and we already like them.
Right, that's the thing.
So as soon as he walks up, we're like, oh, these two.
These two
jokers. Are they dating yet?
I don't know, but they work well together. And it's like,
they're great.
They're like the weird bastard sad kids of like Meg Ryan and like Tom Hanks.
Absolutely. I would love to be like roommates with them.
Wait, can we make a movie where it is a romantic comedy and the parents are Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan and they're
the kids that are like refusing to fall in love with each other, and they're like, nah,
they're the kids.
They're
the
step kids.
There we go.
One's adopted, one's their actual kid, and then one's adopted.
Oh my god, I'd watch it. No, they met each other.
It's like super creepy.
Okay, so Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan find each other after their spouses have died or been divorced.
Did they not end up together in their?
Well, it's not.
This is a new movie.
This is a new movie, but we're
Okay.
playing off of what we've known before. So they get back together, and it's like the wedding's coming up. I want you to meet my son. She's like, well, the wedding's coming up. I want you to meet my daughter. And of course, they both show up, and then one's a distinct personality in one direction, and the other is a distinct person. I don't have this all planned out.
I was like,
I'm making this movie up as we come along.
Yeah.
But one's a distinct personality in the opposite direction. And wouldn't you know it, they don't get along.
So I think that Rebel is going to be that. I mean, not to be annoying, but she's gonna be the rebel, like badass chick. Not like,
Oh my god.
she's just gonna be like I don't do what other people do. Like, I'm cool. I don't need anybody. And he's definitely the uptight,
Right.
like super nerdy. Like, oh god, because he plays that well. I think I've seen him do that before. That's
Yeah.
why I'm like leaning into that for him. But also, she would be really good at that. Maybe
They could
they're both just so nerdy that they're scared to talk to each other. They don't have any friends, so their
And then
parents are
Meg
just looking at
Ryan
it.
and Tom Hanks are like, we need to set them up.
And then the main thing that you cannot forget,
I was actually going to bring it up, and I'm glad you're
how
bringing it
the
up.
movie actually ended,
Mm-hmm.
which is amazing. It ended in a song and a dance number. That was awesome.
Yes,
in
it
the
was.
streets of New York. And I will say, this is this. It was mentioned at the end of one of my other favorite movies, Ella Enchanted, where they ended and they got married in the end. And then the little narrator guy comes in and he goes, well, like we said, you can't go wrong if you follow your heart and end in a song. And then they end in a song. And I
Oh, that's
said, you know
annoying.
what? That's super true. And then this movie ended in a song. And I was like, you just can't go wrong.
You know what
So,
I love about
that.
movies like this, though?
What's that?
I don't need an explanation for anything.
Yeah. It's
You know,
it is
they're
what it
like, you were in a coma, and I go, cool.
is. Yeah, that's what
Don't need it.
happened.
And then at the end, it's like, wait, why did they just break out in a song? I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like, it works.
Yeah, like for this movie, it's like, yeah, she walked out into the street and they started dancing.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
You go with it
It
because they're funny.
it looked like everybody had fun.
It looked like
it.
everybody. Yeah, it looked like a fun movie to make. It was a fun movie to watch, and I liked that. You know, in one way or another, it commented on, honestly, like it is. I think that's a good theme to explore because at the end of the day, you really do like people are fickle.
Mm-hmm.
Not to be some cynical asshole over here, but the one constant thing you have control over is how you see yourself.
Yeah.
Hopefully. And, you know,
It
for
depends
those,
on the day, but generally is how you let yourself treat yourself.
and it's not easy.
Mhm.
It's not easy. I know for a fact, I know from experience. It's not just a thing that you wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning, you tell yourself you're pretty, and that's just how it goes. Like, no, it's a thing you have to constantly work through, but it's you can't get distracted by films like this, like films it satirizes where it's just like someone else is going to complete you, because
Yeah.
the best part about a relationship is that you
make
guys
each
get to
other-
share. You get to share things.
Yeah.
You get to share each other's presence.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Absolutely.
there's something about like sharing yourself rather than needing someone to complete you. And
Yeah.
obviously, it's a little bit more complex than that. Go to therapy if you have to.
I plan to. No,
Wheel of
yeah.
morality. Go to therapy.
There you go. We're gonna get an actual wheel at some point.
Pray and go to therapy.
There you go.
And if you don't pray,
Go to there. Do one, both, or the other, or both.
yeah, because someone else can pray for you while you go to therapy. Which is how my mom's like, I'm still going to pray for you even if you go to therapy.
Like, thank you.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah. I got my pastors praying for me. Like, that's good.
Any final thoughts? Kind of a rough landing, but it needs to be said, people. Love yourself. Before we cut, I thought I should read something out that you might enjoy. It's not necessarily a review on our Apple podcast, but
Lazy.
what?
Lazy people.
Hey.
Just kidding.
Hey. So I just want to. This is a text I got before we
Did
shot.
you change your emoji to have
A mustache?
How committed are you to this?
Enough.
Okay. All right, it's fine. It doesn't-
So this is from one of our listeners, Jackie, who's kids I take care of. You've seen the videos.
yeah.
So
Jackie and Ryan.
Jackie and Ryan.
I know them. Hi.
So she texts me, listen to like 3. She said, listen to like 3 of your podcasts in a row the other day, and let me see if I can do this in her accent. listened to like 3 of your podcasts in a row the other day and wanted to let you know we are so proud of you. Y'all do an incredible job relaying your story. Heart emoji. I responded, oh my goodness, thank you so much. I wish it was a little bit more family friendly because she's got 3 kids.
Yeah.
But I'm happy you can enjoy. And she said, no way. Don't change a thing. So much authenticity. Don't hold back. I love it.
Thanks, Mom.
Love. That is the moral.
All we need is love.
So I wanted to say thank you, Jackie. We
Thank you,
appreciate
Jackie.
it. And we're glad you could listen to our edgy little podcast. We're so edgy over here.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, I mean, feel free if you don't want to go to Apple Podcasts to just send your love through text, email.
No, go to Apple Podcasts.
Yeah.
Rate and review us.
I'll just go make a fake email, sign up for Apple Podcasts, and put that on there for you. So
this is a nice transition. Do you want to do the
Right, yeah. So go ahead and, make sure you give us that rating and review on Apple Podcasts.
Yes.
Make sure you are subscribing to us on
Do it.
YouTube and hit that bell for notifications on new uploads.
ding ding, motherfucker?
Make sure you are commenting on all of our stuff, sharing it on social media if you are so led to do so. Make sure you're sharing it with your friends and family.
Podcast.
Telling people about it.
Bitch.
If you're excited about that, awesome. And make sure you follow us on Spotify. We're on wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Yeah.
There you go. I was like, I need one more.
We's on it.
We own it.
All right, so do all those things. Like us, everything he just said. And also, be sure to tell somebody that you love them this week. And give in to the corporate holiday. And happy Valentine's Day.
That's sweet. And if your mom is like my mom and threatens you if you don't send her a Valentine, make sure you do it before she asks. Just show her you love her.
There you go.
Anyways.
But until then, I'm Josiah J. Rizzo.
I'm Benjamin G. Jones.
And on Wednesdays, we wear pink. Were we doing that?
I was
flamboyant?
like, I kind of.
Hi, I'm Josiah Rizzo.
I'm Benji Jones.
And on Wednesdays, we wear pink.
I felt like that wasn't like
Gay enough?
yeah.